All right, today we're diving into the pretty controversial closure of Auroville's Youth Centre. Now, this isn't just a story about a building getting shut down. Nope, it's a story that really gets into some deep-seated conflict, a clash of ideals, and you could say a fight over the very soul of this planned city. Let's get into it.
So if you really want to understand why the youth center is being closed, you have to start with this one powerful and honestly pretty provocative idea. Its location was a deliberate act of defiance. This whole conflict, it wasn't an accident. It was literally built into the center's foundation right from the very beginning.
So it's official. The youth center is being shut down. And in this explainer, we're going to walk through the official reasons why and really dig into the core issues that push this whole situation to its breaking point.
Okay, so we know what happened, right? But the real story here is in the why. And to get that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, back to a really bitter disagreement over a single piece of land and two very, very different visions for what the future of Auroville should even look like.
So the first major reason for the closure, it all comes down to the center's location. And look, this wasn't just a poor choice of real estate, this was a deliberate move to challenge the very blueprint of Auroville itself.
Just to put this into perspective for you, the youth center was built on land that was already designated for the Crown Road, a huge major artery in Auroville's master plan. This wasn't a secret, you know. Everybody knew it.
And get this wasn't just some accusation coming from the administration. The youth center's own founders actually admitted in a public meeting back in 2020 that their choice of location was intentionally obstructive.
But the conflict didn't just stop with the location. Nah. Over the years, a whole pattern of behavioral and safety issues started to pop up, and that created even more friction with the rest of the community.
The official record really paints a clear picture here. We're talking persistent problems with parties, alcohol, and drugs, unsafe structures being built without any permits, and just a general disregard for community rules. You also had late-night disturbances with outside guests becoming a regular safety concern, and honestly, a black eye on the community's reputation.
So what happens when all of this stuff goes on for years? Well, the cumulative effect was this growing sense of impunity. It's like a belief took hold that the youth center was just above the rules, operating under this mistaken idea that, in Auroville, the police does not intervene.
And then there was the money. The youth center's whole financial and operational structure was another huge point of contention, because it basically placed it completely outside of Auroville's established framework.
I mean, the contrast here is pretty stark. While all other Auroville entities are required to have registered units, auditable accounts, and clear oversight, the youth center was operating as an unregistered entity with this vague, open account system, a lot of cash flows, and basically zero accountability.
So here's the bottom line. The youth center was more than happy to benefit from being associated with Auroville, right? But it absolutely refused to accept any of the responsibilities that are supposed to come with it.
Now, you might be thinking this all happened overnight, but it didn't. This was not a snap decision. The road to closure was a long one, marked by a years-long effort at communication and, at least according to the working groups, a pretty consistent lack of cooperation from the youth center.
So this final chapter really kicked off 3 years ago. That's when the working groups officially notified the youth center about the closure and even offered a transition plan. But during that long period, they say the center's representatives just failed to respond. So today, most of the residents have left, and assistance is apparently still being offered to the final two.
So why were the parties and the substance use such a big deal? Well, it really goes back to the very foundation of Auroville. This quote from the founder, the mother, makes it crystal clear that alcohol and drugs run contrary to the community's spiritual aims. So this wasn't just a social problem. For many, it was a spiritual one.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The story of the Auroville Youth Centre is so much more than just a local dispute. It's really a case study in that classic tension between individual expression and the collective good. When a project that's born from protest clashes with a master plan, who gets to decide the future? And maybe more importantly, who ends up paying the price? It's a question that every community, big or small, really has to grapple with.